The boreal forest circles our planet's northern hemisphere. This vast and diverse region separates the prairie in the south and the tundra in the north. It accounts for about 1/3 of the Earth's forested area and stores carbon, purifies our air and water, and regulates the climate. The birth and evolution of this incredible forest has been driven by major disturbances over time that have led to its inhabitants becoming incredibly resilient and adaptive. The skill and knowledge acquired over thousands of years about the value and use of plants and animals is critical in the success and prosperity of the many people who have called the forest their home for generations. The boreal forest has provided the people who populate it food, shelter, clothing, medicine, and spiritual guidance throughout history. Returning the forest to its natural state after sharing its benefits only seems a fitting sign of respect and appreciation.
I've always had a tremendous frustration with the reclamation process in that until very recently, reclamation simply consisted of planting grass and saying, well, we've got vegetation there, we can go home. The reason Driftpile took off is of all the communities we approached, Driftpile was the most avidly interested, not only in the concept, but actually in having an idea of what sort of a project they would like, how they would like to do it. So that enthusiasm, that interest led us to focus the project at Driftpile.
I thought it would be a good, interesting thing to be part of. Now that I'm a big part of it, I find it a really good project.
The key to maintaining a culture lies in the successful transfer of traditional knowledge, skills, and language from the elders to the youth in the community. Shell Canada, in cooperation with Driftpile First Nation, Northern Lakes College, and the Woodland Operations Learning Foundation, or WOLF, is exploring an alternative approach to land reclamation. Reclaiming the land with species that align with Indigenous peoples' traditional use of the forest is a big step in the right direction on the road to preserving traditional values while meeting the reclamation criteria.
I'm looking forward to joining the group. I'll definitely store what I will learn. I'd like to pass it on to my children because I raised my kids in a city, so they don't know anything about wild.
Alberta has a long history of requiring reclamation of upstream oil and gas facilities on abandonment. In particular, in the forested areas of Alberta, traditional reclamation practice focused on revegetation of abandoned sites. Revegetation was generally construed as achieving 80% cover of plants, regardless of species or origin. In 2010, there were criteria for reclamation of oil well and associated facilities on forested lands established. These reclamation criteria require that the holder of an oil and gas tenure prior to abandonment must reclaim the site to what was on the site prior to establishment of the facility. The project conducted at Driftpile is aligned very closely with this sort of practice in that what we were trying to do is identify plant species not necessarily of commercial importance, but of cultural importance to the Driftpile community.
Trees, plants, berries, and all those, and roots.
We'll just be borrowing seedlings from one of the forestry companies.
The first step in the process was to hold a discussion on the need for reclamation and how reclamation practices have evolved. The plants that were chosen by the group not only had to be appropriate for reclamation, but also had to provide additional value in the form of medicinal or cultural uses.
I always say moose because that's how we pronounce them in our language. Mosomna.
The species to be planted were selected by a group of elders from the Driftpile First Nation, who became the primary stewards of the reclamation project. The elders showed great passion, not only in sharing knowledge of the natural environment, but also to leave a legacy of traditions, language, and values for the youth of today and for generations to come. The plant collection excursions were definitely a highlight of the project. These trips provided the group with an opportunity to share insight about the various uses of the plants that were being collected.
I don't know, anything medicinal seems to have that purple color on it.
All of the collected plant samples would then be taken to the Boreal Research Institute greenhouse in Peace River. At the nursery, the plant samples and seeds were placed in a controlled environment and put through processes such as stratification, which uses cold storage followed by thawing to induce germination in the seed, and scarification, which is a chemical process that mimics the seed passing through the digestive system of an animal such as a bird or a bear, which helps the seed germinate.
We don't understand for many of these species whether or not that process is required and what that process might look like.
For most species, a commercial tree nursery has the experience to produce seedlings for outplanting in the forest, but for some of the indigenous plants, these techniques are still emerging. Despite these challenges, the Boreal Research Institute was able to produce the required seedlings, which were then shipped to the reclamation site. The group, along with some forestry professionals, planted the seedlings on the reclamation demonstration site chosen by the community. There was a lot of soil compaction on the site, so it was necessary to use a special plow to help loosen up the earth so that the roots of the newly planted seedlings had room to grow. Because the site is within the Driftpile community, it's easier to monitor and test the success of the plants.
The root plug on the seedling, putting the seedling in that slot.
The hope of those involved in the Driftpile Reclamation project is to maintain a continuing long-term relationship between the Driftpile people and the land they live on, creating a legacy of traditions and knowledge that will be passed on to generations to come.
Indian way of life, we'll say. I like the herbs, the bush and whatnot, and I figured maybe I could pass that on, a little of that to the younger generation.
I really enjoy anything that helps teach people, whatever age, about how to exist without a grocery store.
I'd like the knowledge to be passed among my peers that we gather from the elders about the plants and the traditional ways it's been used.
My favorite part actually is a lot of it, mainly the togetherness of my elders, my youth, and getting to know all of you guys, just all of us being together, being able to share all of our knowledge within everything, regardless if it's plants, industry, work-related, or just family. That's what I like most about it.
It will be an affirmation that the land will continue to thrive.